Is your job safe? Well, it may not be if the Federal Reserve gets their way. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell recently said that we need to act now forthrightly, strongly, as we have been doing. My colleagues and I are strongly committed to this project and will keep at it until the job is done. What job is that? Fighting inflation. The only problem with that is that inflation may only be stopped at the cost of you losing your job, considering that the US may need a 7.5% unemployment rate just to curb inflation. Which means that the Fed is strongly committed to fighting inflation until the job is done, which also means until your job is gone. Ready? Let's dive in. Central banks around the world are scrambling, trying to get in front of the consequences of their own behavior. They're trying to stop inflation. The Federal Reserve is now expected to do another 75 basis point rate hike. This is because of the strong words that the Federal Reserve and Powell have been saying against inflation, how strongly they're committed to fighting it, but also because economists are now expecting an 8.1% inflation rate to come in for August. And with inflation staying high, the only thing that would cause the Federal Reserve to take a step back and be less committed to fighting inflation would be the jobs market. But unfortunately, right now, the jobs information they are looking at are currently indicating that the jobs market is strong. We are seeing US jobless claims trending lower now after a summer where they were going up, especially considering their favorite jobs data that they look at is the job openings report, which shows the number of job openings. However, even though this chart is showing an extremely tight labor market with lots of job openings, you can start seeing right now anecdotal data that these job openings are not all they're cracked up to be. There are many people starting to report that despite the fact that there are lots of job openings, they've applied at dozens, sometimes even hundreds of these jobs, and they're way overqualified for them, with hearing nothing back on the applications, no interviews, and these job openings are not actually real. Further than that, private statistics that are going around looking for layoffs are showing a little bit of a worse picture. I've shown this chart before from layoffs.fyi, but we can see here that May, June, July, and August all had extremely bad months in the tech world. This is not a good sign considering that the real jobs data the Fed doesn't see, and the fake job data is what the Fed is using to see whether or not they should stop tightening and stop fighting inflation so hard. According to new estimates from the IMF, the US unemployment rate might need to reach 7.5% to stop the current rate of inflation. That would officially cause job losses of about 6 million people. And again, these are the official numbers, so how much worse will it be in reality? Now, the relationship here is to stop what's called the wage price spiral. This is because as prices go up, people need more money in order to be able to afford those things at those higher prices. And so they get a new job, an additional job, or get a pay raise. They negotiate a raise with their employer in order to continue to afford their cost of living. And those companies, because they're selling something that has gone up in price, typically can afford to pass on some of those increased revenues in the forms of wage hikes. But since employees then are getting more income, they can continue to afford to buy all those things at the higher prices, which supports prices to continue going up. So in order to break that wage price spiral, central banks step in and try and take people's jobs. Which brings me to a message that I have for Jerome Powell. Powell, if you truly believe that economic pain is necessary to stop inflation, and if you believe that that economic pain involves job losses, you first. Because let's be honest about the Federal Reserve's role in financial crises throughout history. The Federal Reserve has been the cause of every financial crisis since its creation. Within just 6 years of the Federal Reserve starting, we got a Great Depression, and then within just 7 years after that one was solved, we got another one that was so much worse that was called the Great Depression from then on. And because of the mishandling of that depression, it made it last 20 years instead of a year and a half like the one before it. And time after time after time again, the Federal Reserve has been the cause of financial crises, and the solutions that the Fed employs to try and solve the problem that it caused only make things worse the next time around. And let's also be honest about the actual cause of inflation. The wage price spiral is not the cause, it's a symptom. The cause of inflation is the trillions of dollars that you printed in 2020. And so if economic pain is required to stop inflation that you caused, which means job losses are required to stop the inflation that you caused, how about you go first? And I can guarantee you, without the Federal Reserve, if we cut those jobs first, we will solve 99% of the economic problems that this country has faced and will face in the future. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.